Welcome back, Trans theorists, to another episode of Fixing Transformers. And in today's, we're going to take a look at how the Mini-Dinobots joined the Autobot ranks in Transformers The Last Night, and what happened to them after. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Now for you guys who don't know that much about the Mini-Dinobots, they are essentially baby versions of the Dinobots, who didn't serve any real purpose in the film but to be cute, and more or less pets for Cade Yeager. But now tackling on the real question, how do these guys exist and where do they come from? Well, to start off, we know that they came into Transformers Cinematic Universe between the events of Age of Extinction and The Last Night, proven by the fact that we see them in the beginning of the film, and the bond that they have with the other Transformers. For example, take this clip of Perry and Drift.
No hate, no anger. Get off, you maggot! I will kill you, flying rat!
As we can see, Perry has some type of bond with Drift, for the fact that he goes to sit on his leg. This can also be reinforced when Perry gives Cade a beer, and when Cade is talking to Sharp T about his power. As we can see in this clip, we can clearly prove that the Mini-Dinobots came into the events between Age of Extinction and The Last Night, since Cade has apparently been teaching them new tricks, for example, Sharp T and his flames.
Perfect delivery, buddy. You gotta work on the pickup. Still got him in training.
But now we have to ask ourselves, how did the Mini-Dinobots come into existence? Well, we can first rule out that the Dinobots had not reproduced to get them, since Transformers don't have the ability to reproduce. But that's for a whole nother video entirely. But to back this statement up, here's a line from Optimus Prime's narration in a Transformers 2007 film.
Before time began, there was the cube. We know not where it comes from, only that it holds the power to create worlds and fill them with life. That is how our race was born.
So ultimately, we can rule out reproduction as an option. So this gives us one final answer. They were built. Now you may be saying, Trans, how could they be built if there was no Allspark energy to give them life? And it's impossible to create a Transformer without any Allspark energy or Energon. Well, what you're about to hear is going to be groundbreaking, so bear with me. As you learned in Transformers 2007, Optimus says that the Allspark created all life on Cybertron, hence for it to be the only thing that can give a Transformer life. This can be proven by the fact that Sam was running throughout Mission City, with the cube laying off electric sparks, creating the Allspark mutations. And that same electricity will come into play later. This is also shown when the Allspark Shard gives life to the kitchen crew, along with reawakening Jetfire from stasis, along with reviving Megatron and Optimus Prime. Now what's one thing that stands out to all of you in all these Allspark encounters? If you don't know, it's the energy it gives off, and the ability to create life. But now if we look back onto the Mini-Dinobots, the way I believe they came into be was with two elements, electricity and Energon. Now I'm sure a lot of you, and I mean a lot, want to click that dislike button for me saying that, but it actually makes perfect sense. But before I get there, let me finish explaining how they got built. As I was saying before, Energon and electricity were the two factors that created the Mini-Dinobots. I theorized that Day Trader played a role in their creation, and here is how. We know Day Trader is an Autobots parts dealer. He has voice boxes, a lot of junk, and even hell, Starscream's head. So all in all, we know that he has a lot of junk and lots of it. And I believe that he gave Cade the tools and scrap parts that he needed to make 3 mini-transformers, and since Cade was being Cade, he made 3 Dino-esque creations, with the scrap Day Trader gave him. This can be proven by the fact that the Mini-Dinobots are simple in design, unlike any other Transformer, and at the fact that Cade is an inventor, as we saw in Age of Extinction. And to put the last nail in the coffin, he even made a somewhat working security dog back in Age of Extinction. So I believe it's fair to say that with the evidence that's put in front of us, Cade made at least the shells of the Mini-Dinobots. But to give them a soul and a personality, Cade needed Energon and electricity, so he first went to collect some Energon from Grimlock. Now you may be wondering, how is this possible if Grimlock is a giant dinosaur? There would be no way for Cade to collect Energon from him. Well, the way he collected it is actually different than what you would have expected. As we saw in Transformers The Last Night, Grimlock was eating T. Sherman's cruiser, and as we saw, he had a lot of Energon all over that thing when he was eating it. Now since we do not know when Grimlock stopped acting like a fierce warrior and became more like a big dog, I can assume this was not the first time for him eating a car, since Cade and the gang moved to the junkyard shortly after the Battle of Hong Kong, thanks to the help of Joshua and Sherman. And I assume since Grimlock would mess around in the junkyard a lot by eating cars, it would lead on to the other Dinobots adopting this behavior. But the way Cade got Grimlock's Energon was collecting it from the slobber chewed on cars around the junkyard. And remember how I said that the other Dinobots would adopt this behavior? Well, the original cast of Dinobots are still at the junkyard, since we could still see Slug. But I'll be doing a dedicated video on that topic soon. But as I said before, once Cade collected the Energon from Grimlock, he then moved on to get some from Slug, which he would use to create Tops, and Grimlock to create Sharp T. But now we fall into an issue, and that issue is Perry. The reason being is that Strafe is nowhere to be seen at the junkyard, along with Scorn, but they're still at the junkyard either off-screen or underground in a burrow. Now if the underground part confused you, let me clear it up. As we learned in Transformers The Last Night, the Dinobots could burrow under the ground, which is why when the TRF came to hunt down the Autobots, Grimlock and Slug popped out of legit nowhere. And this all can be led back to a line that Cade says when he's angry at Grimlock.
Don't eat cars. Don't eat cars. You get back in your hole and think about what you did!
As we heard, Cade said go back to your hole, which most likely means Grimlock's den or one of his tunnels that leads underground. And this is where I believe Scorn and Strafe were hanging out, and why we did not see them in the film. So yet again, going back onto Cade, he took some Energon from Strafe, the same way that he did to Grimlock, and he went back to work on the Mini-Dinobots. Cade would then put the corresponding Energon into each Mini-Dinobot, and then electrocute them so they would become sentient. But now we land into our first issue, because how does Cade know how to even make a Transformer? Well, remember Kinetic Solutions Incorporated, KSI? They made their own Transformers. They didn't have no Allspark to create them though, just Transformium, the metal that makes up all Transformers, and Energon, which they most likely drained from the dead Transformers after their deaths. And the only way for them to make the creations go online was by putting electricity through them, which they could use to turn them off and on at any time. But of course when Megatron became Galvatron and took over, there is no way for KSI to turn him off. But if the electricity element doesn't cut it for you yet, when Galvatron slams his hand into the metal rod, he creates electricity that goes to all the KSI drones, re-waking them, and putting them under his control. But to really seal the deal with the Energon electricity combination, let's jump into Transformers Revenge of the Fallen and to Megatron's Revival. Before Scalpel slams a shard into Megatron's chest, he says a few words.
The shard make Energon.
As we heard, he said that the shard makes Energon, and right after that we can see an electric blast, so if that doesn't cut it for you, I don't know what would. But before we move back onto Cade, I want to clarify that Spark Energy is way over 10 times stronger than the do-it-yourself combination of electricity and Energon, proven by the fact that it fully replenished Jetfire's Energon and reformatted Megatron's body thanks to the help of scrap metal's parts. But moving back onto Cade, the reason why he knew this was because he committed corporate espionage against KSI, which means that he learned secrets from that corporation that no one else would know. Well, besides Brains of course. And with that info in mind, he hooked up the cables to the Mini-Dinobots as shells, and after putting their corresponding Energons in, he plunged the 3 cables into the socket, combining the Energon and electricity, bringing the Mini-Dinobots to life. And with those events in mind, that's how we got the current status of them in the Last Night film. But now the question remains, whatever happened to them? Well, we know that they stayed in a junkyard due to the fact that we never saw them again, which can be backed up by the fact that they never went into Cade's car to evacuate the junkyard. Only Squeaks made it onto it along with Izzy, Jimmy, and Wheelie. And with this info in mind, we can start to paint a picture on what went down. As we saw during the junkyard raid, the Decepticons show up and Hound and Trench and the Mini-Dinobots are left to fend for it. Since we never saw Trench again, it's safe to say that he was killed by one of Megatron's crew for being a Decepticon traitor. We also saw Hound get shot by Megatron due to his rage seeing Starscream's severed head, reminding him of his comrade's death. And with that blast, Hound was down for the count, and he had to evacuate the junkyard, proven by the fact that A, Trench was already dead, and B, there was no way he could stand up against Megatron, let alone the help of Dreadbot, Mohawk, Nitro, Barricade, and Onslaught. So it's safe to say that after that blast by Megatron, he would have known to escape. But now this would mean that he would have left the Mini-Dinobots behind to fend for themselves, right? Well, you're actually wrong, and let me explain. Hal knew that there was going to be a heavy ambush, so before he started to grab the weapons that would be most suitable to protect himself and Trench, he put the Mini-Dinobots each in one of his pouches to conceal their energy signal protecting them. And because the Mini-Dinobots' cannon height is around 1 foot, they would have easily been able to fit in the pouches. And with that, he took the Mini-Dinobots to safety away from the junkyard. And the reason why the Decepticons did not pursue him was the fact that Megatron was more obsessed on getting the talisman, proven by the fact that instead of killing Squeaks when he had the chance, he dropped him when he saw Cade having the talisman on him. But now you may be wondering, Trance, so what if Hound saved them? They could have easily have well died off screen, since they were never seen again, right? Well, you're actually wrong, since in the scene where Day Trader brings back the night ship, we can clearly see Perry on Hound's head. And though we don't see Sharp, T, or Tops, for me I believe it's safe to say that they survived since Perry did. And if you're wondering where they were during the final battle, they were in the night ship which was being piloted by Day Trader and Drift. And if we did get a Transformer 6 that would have been a continuation of the last night, then it's safe to say that we probably would have seen more of these little guys. But sadly that would never happen. Well, in movie form at least. And just like that, that's how the Mini-Dinobots were created in Transformers The Last Night. If you enjoyed this theory and the Fixing Transformers collection, please give a like rating because it helped the channel a lot. As always, it's been Trans Theories reminding you guys to keep on theorizing.